So the first thing that your judge is going to look at when you come up is going to be your trot in, making sure that you're straight onto center line and that your halt and your transitions to and from the halt are smooth and balanced. Don't worry at this stage about making sure that your horse is square and not square. Just focused on making a very balanced transition and making sure they're attentive and light off of your aids. This is going to be even more important than a horse that falls on his forehand but somehow looks square from the front. The next movement is going to be your little half circles coming up from the left and right. Make sure that they start at E and B, that you don't make your turn until after E and B. A lot of people will start and they'll make their turn at E or B and then come back, but the movement is supposed to start there. So you're supposed to hit the letter and then go on and do your 10-meter half circle from there. So you'll see it again in a second as Radish comes around to the right, that we hit B, and then we start our 10-meter half circle. And you can really see that she bends around my right leg and she keeps that same pace and that same fluid relaxation throughout. And as we start to hit the rail, that we come back into more of a left bend as smoothly as possible. But this movement comes up very, very quickly in the test, and it's very important that you keep your rhythm and that your horse stretches down, and more importantly, that he stretches out. You don't ever want to see a horse curling its neck behind the bit in your stretch work. That's a big no-no. Oh, here you see one of Radish's little bloopers of the test, which definitely brought our score down, but you can see through the rest of it that she lengthens her frame and her stride, and that her pace stays relatively the same, which is what you're going to want to look for in your test. The next big movement, which is a huge pet peeve of mine watching, is the trot to walk. This is the best opportunity to show them that you can do a correct and balanced transition, that you don't need to use your hands, and that you can have this horse go forward and energized and more collected into the movement rather than just dropping it all at once. Then you'll go right into your little free walk. Make sure, everyone loves a free walk, but just make sure that you keep that energy. They really want to see that swing and oscillation through the whole body. So you can see Radish's neck is swinging and that her whole butt and her back brings her to it. She gets a little bit more closed off when we go into the medium walk, which is pretty typical, but showing that they're not going to get too tense and that they're not going to ruin the score is really important too. And then pretty easily, very quickly, you come up to a trot and a canter transition. There's not a whole lot of time to prep. And then you go right into your lengthened canter and a 15-meter circle to come back. Make sure when you do this, don't barrel down the long side. No one likes to see that. No one likes to see you yanking on your horse's face once you get into your circle because now he's on his forehand and he can't balance up. I'd much rather see a horse that lifts its front end and isn't as exaggerated than someone that just guns it but doesn't have the balance. You'll then continue your canter through all the way to X. Make sure you balance it up. A lot of horses have difficulty, and a lot of young riders will have difficulties because they want to break, and then it gets a little unbalanced between rushing and breaking. But, that can be easily fixed. You then have your second canter, and you repeat it again. You can see with Radish, I just kind of lift her up. She's very long and downhill normally. So I really try to see that she has that extra reach from that inside hind to really stretch forward. And as we go into that 15-meter circle, making sure it stays rather accurate. And then really just making sure that there's a difference, that the quality stays the same, that it doesn't get laggy and it doesn't get tense, but that you then can come into a really nice, lovely canter and do a forward downward transition yet again. You go right back into another lengthening. Here we go. You can see she gets a little faster. The tempo gets a little irregular here, but she definitely still tries and lengthens her frame and her stride. And really at first one, they're not going to be as picky as they're going to be as you move up the levels, especially once you get to first 3, they're not going to want to see that. But being her first test, I wasn't too unhappy and I was pretty proud of her. You've then got a lot of time to trot, regroup, coming back up, another little half circle, right? So make sure, just like we said before, you hit the letter and then you start your half circle, come up, make sure you're balanced, and finally, you get to halt. You're done.